Hey guys, the Explorer of Horror here, the Horror Boy. Welcome back to some more reviews, and today we'll be continuing our reviews on the Evil Dead series. Of course, today's review is going to be on the classic sequel, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Now, Evil Dead 2, like I said before, I have the Blu-ray here, which, excellent Blu-ray. If you have not seen Evil Dead 2 yet, first of all, this review contains spoilers. Second of all, go watch Evil Dead 2. And third of all, watch it on Blu-ray, because this movie looks excellent on Blu-ray. Of course, the classic Evil Dead 2 poster. I love all the artwork for Evil Dead. Like, all the posters. There's not one bad Evil Dead poster. Like, even something as basic as this. Very basic. I prefer the theatrical poster over this, which is basically this in the back. And I think it says, like, the most terrifying film you ever experienced. But we'll be getting to this one soon. But even something as basic as that, I really enjoy. But I love all the artwork from Evil Dead. But Evil Dead 2, back in the day, it was called Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Came out in 1987. It's 7.8 on IMDb by Sam Raimi once again. Now, Evil Dead 2, like I said, came out in 1987, a while after Evil Dead 1. And I think it was because Sam Raimi and his crew would go on to make other projects after the first Evil Dead. I mean, the first Evil Dead was a big thing. Even though it took a while for it to get released and distributed, Evil Dead definitely made noise in Hollywood. So, Sam Raimi made a couple things after the first Evil Dead. I think he would go on to make a movie, big movie too, I think, with a pretty big budget. I want to say it was called Crime Wave, but I'm not too sure. But I know that movie had a lot of studio interference, so and it bombed pretty bad. So he had to go back and figure out, okay, what's my next movie going to be? And he decided to make Evil Dead 2. And Evil Dead 2 wasn't going to be made by Sam Raimi. It wasn't going to be made with this story. It was going to be a different kind of Evil Dead 2. And then over time, it morphed into the Evil Dead 2 that we got. And of course, just Evil Dead 2, man, the history of this movie. I remember being a kid, and like I said, I seen the first Evil Dead pretty young. And, you know, about 4 or 5 years later, people were talking about, oh, you seen Evil Dead? And I was like, yeah, I love that movie. And they're like, what do you think about that part where he cuts his hand off with a chainsaw and puts a chainsaw on his arm? And I didn't know that happened because I only seen the first movie. And of course, the first movie, the only time that you see a chainsaw is when Ash is going to cut up his girlfriend, but he doesn't do it. He doesn't have the heart to cut her up. So that was the only time that you seen a chainsaw in the first Evil Dead. And when someone told me that, I was like, wait a minute, what? There's a guy that cuts his hand off with a chainsaw, puts a chainsaw on his arm? That sounds awesome. What movie is that? Kind of Evil Dead? And then, of course, over time, I learned about Evil Dead 2. And I was like, holy crap, there's an Evil Dead 2. Then, of course, there was, after that, Army of Darkness. I didn't even know about Army of Darkness either. So slowly over time, I was like, man, there's 3. And then the remake came out. And that was cool because I got to see that remake in theaters. And man, I got stories about that film when I get to about the theater experience of that film. But Evil Dead 2, the story, of course, not really sure if it takes place story-wise after Evil Dead 2. I like to think it does. The way I look at it is when Ash gets hit by a demon and he gets flown back into the tree, that to me personally, that's what connects the first 2 movies. And then the third movie, when Ash is being carried to the fortress, that to me is where they all connect. The stuff in the beginning of this movie, of course, is a very questionable opening where it's basically kind of a remake. So you're wondering, did the first movie ever happen? But I guess all 3 movies happen because Ash vs. Evil Dead connects everything together. You know, all these movies and the rest of what happens in that show. So everything kind of gets put together in that show. So I'd imagine everything happens in the same storyline. But the movie opens up with Ash and his girlfriend going to the cabin. Just kind of a little quick summary of the first movie, knocks her head off with a shovel, buries her, and gets possessed. Of course, he has that cool shot where he flies back, and it's called like a Samo cam, where I guess what they did it was they drove a car and they put Bruce Campbell on this thing, and they sped the car and had people hitting him with tree branches and stuff like that. And I'm thinking they sped up the film reel somehow. And just the way that looks, this is 87, this is before CGI, this is a very low budget, like very low budget movie. Maybe it had a little bit of a bigger budget than the first movie, but not by a whole lot. But just that shot, I absolutely love. And basically, Ash is possessed for a minute, gets unpossessed, tries to get away from the cabin, but the bridge is destroyed, and realizes the sun's going back down, and he has to survive another night of terror in the cabin. And you meet other characters along the way, like Sarah Berry's character. You've also got Dan Hicks. You also got Bobby Joe. Where are you, girl, Bobby Joe? I love Dan Hicks in this movie. Rest in peace to Dan Hicks. I think he does an amazing job in this movie. And of course, Dan Hicks is going to be in plenty of other Scott Spiegel and Sam Raimi productions. He was in Intruder. Did a great job in Intruder. He was in a lot of movies, actually, after this. But great actor, great performance in this movie, playing this character. I think he's just such a fun character in this movie. And, basically, all these people arrive there in the cabin with Ash, and they're trying to survive the night. And the reason why I love Evil Dead 2 so much is because when I first seen it, wasn't as young as when I first seen the first movie, but it wasn't long after I seen the first movie. It was like 3 or 4 years later. So it was still one of those horror films that really kind of helped morph me into the horror film fan that I am today. It was one of those movies, man, that when I first seen it, just really got into the energy of this movie, this world, the universe of Evil Dead. I think in this movie is where it really just becomes like this really crazy world, bizarre film that you just sit down and watch and you experience and you go, wow, like, look at all these ideas. And it's such a fun movie, short film, an hour and 24 minutes. So it's a really quick movie, lots of crazy gore and crazy looking effects, and funny ideas. And I think, my favorite, of course, is the first movie. It's a hard favorite because, I love all 4 Evil Dead movies to death. But the first movie is probably my favorite. The second one's a very, very close second favorite. But if I'm being honest with you guys, the way I look at it is I'm just a huge fan of the series. I love all 4 movies for all 4 different reasons, honestly. I love all 4 of them. And this movie I love because it's just got such a wild nature to it. And I mean, just some of the ideas they do in this movie, like, of course, Ash cutting his hand off with a chainsaw. And when I seen this movie, I was like, okay, that's what they meant. Because I was figuring out, like, okay, when does that happen in the first movie? Is it after the credits? Like, what happens in the first movie where Ash cuts his hand off and puts a chainsaw on it? But when I watched this movie, I was like, oh, that's where it's at. So when I seen that, it was very cool. And that moment, man, that whole moment of just, cutting the shotgun and making a sawed-off shotgun, where he puts it back here, flips the gun, puts it back here, gets the chainsaw all rigged up so that he can go like this and rim it up. It says groovy. Just that whole scene, the whole build of that scene, the whole energy of that scene, brilliant, brilliant stuff. Some of the other things I like about this movie, when I want to say the Ed character gets possessed. I want to say it's the Ed character, but I'm not sure. But when he gets possessed, I just love, Ed. I just love the way the makeup looks on that. Just the Deadeye in that scene. And I will say that in this movie, the makeup effects are definitely bumped up from the first movie. I love the makeup effects in the first movie. I don't hark, I don't hark on the makeup effects of the first movie because I feel like they're still very impressive to this day. there are a few shots here and there where the effects can obviously show their age, but I still give the effects in the first movie credit. I think they still look great. But this movie, definitely the effects by KMB were bumped up. I love the way that demon's design and the possession, just creepy looking thing. And I remember when I first seen it, I was like, ugh, it's the way the teeth look and the way, just the wetness of the skin. Sounds weird describing it like that, but just like how wet and slimy this thing is and just disgusting looking it is. I love that whole sequence where he throws Dan Hicks up and Dan Hicks just barely hits a light bulb and flies back down. Or he turns his head around and grabs Dan Hicks and just kind of, not really breaks his neck, but just kind of, snaps his neck over here. Just throwing people around. Of course, the classic shot of the Henrietta demon rising out of the cellar after the tape says, "I couldn't bear to kill her, so I buried her into this fruit cellar." I think what it said was he couldn't bear to dismember her, so he buried her in the cellar. And of course, Ash is in the cellar, and the way that whole thing looks and how the face transforms in stop motion, I love that whole sequence. Of course, you got Ted Raimi playing possessed Henrietta, and I love how when it transforms, it's this puppet thing, but even that looks creepy, and those sound effects, something like a monkey, like a dying monkey kind of sound effect, kind of creepy there. But they close the door and they stomp on it, and the eyeball pops out and flies across the room into a girl's mouth. A girl being tortured by these vines and stuff like that gets dragged across the ground, and there's like all this impact and build up to where she crashes into a tree, and that cuts into a shot of a picture being dropped. Or how I can keep going on and on. The book laughing scene where everything's just laughing around in books and shelves and lamps, and everything is laughing. The deer head laughing. The possessed hand sequence. The beginning of the movie where the headless wife is torturing him. This movie is an absolute classic. There's so many different memorable scenes, and what I love about this movie too is that most of this movie is just Ash by himself in the cabin trying to survive, trying to figure out, how to get through this night. He loses his hand. Give me back my hand. Having to cut the demon's head apart to finally kill it. When he, is crashing all these plates in his head because he's possessed. He has his hand possessed. Just breaking the plates over his head. I can go on and on, man. There's a lot of great, fantastic stuff. I also love how in this movie, this is like the only Evil Dead movie, I believe, where the demon is finally seen and like manifested. And they called it a rotten apple head. And it's like this giant demon that looks like a rotten apple, of course. This is in the title. But just the way that this giant monster looks, and the way the mouth and how it's all practical. It's got these teeth, and it just looks disgusting. It looks creepy. Just that whole scene where Ash grabs the chainsaw and jams it into the demon's eye, and it's bleeding blood. Of course, there's different blood colors in this movie, like blue blood, yellow blood. There's like black blood, green blood. That's because they tried to get an R rating in this movie, like an R rating. They tried to get it in theaters, and they couldn't do it because I guess back then this movie was too much for back then. But nowadays it probably would be able to go in theaters, but back then it was just too crazy, I guess. But yeah, man, just as far as the music goes, I love the way the score sounds. I love the stop motion effects in this movie. Just such a classic thing to do, stop motion. I really enjoy it in this movie, and I think it really looks good. I love the ending where they form this giant void in space and time, this portal, and it kind of sends Ash back to the medieval times. But of course, it sends the evil back there too, so he has to deal with that. But yeah, man, I really love Evil Dead 2 is a classic. I mean, I really can't say much more about it other than it's a masterpiece, classic. You got Sam Raimi directing the movie, a brilliant job. I love just the energy of this movie and how fun it is, how classic it is. I love the effects of this movie. I love the acting by Bruce Campbell and Sarah Berry and Dan Hicks. And even the other actors like Bobby Joe and the Ed character. You had Ted Remy playing possessed Henrietta. I love the atmosphere of it. I love just how it's filmed and how it looks. Even some of the goofs I can kind of get behind. Like on the old Evil Dead 2 DVD, you could see a wire. Like when the eyeball flies across the room, you could see a wire. Or just certain shots in the movie, you can see like a wire, like you can see where the effect is being done. But in this Blu-ray, they clean up a lot of that stuff. They put CGI in there, they remove things, and it looks good. The movie looks great. Not only in HD, but they just fix a lot of the problems too. Like they fixed a lot of the bloopers. But yeah, Evil Dead 2, man. What more can I say about it? It's like one of those movies where I can't really say much more about it other than it's a classic, man. It's a masterpiece for a reason. The possessed hand stuff, the chainsaw being put on the hand is classic. How he fights the Henrietta demon, the head kind of grows out. I love the effects, the practical effects, the puppetry, the stop motion animation. They really utilized everything in this movie they could. They have practical, they have animation, they have all kinds of stuff in this movie. And I think they really did do a fantastic job making this movie. It's a fun film. It's a fast film. It's creepy at times, but yet it's hilarious at times. It's bonkers. It's crazy. It's well acted. Well made. Well made movie. I think it's one of the best sequels of all time. One of the best horror films of all time. And I think is a true example of a horror film that's just one of the greatest ones that has a lot of heart and passion put into it. But anyways, guys, Evil Dead 2, 10 out of 10 easily. Perfect movie for me. Love it to death. No, not really any problems for me. Nothing really sticks out to me as a problem. I just love everything about Evil Dead 2. It's classic. I mean, what more can I say about the classic Evil Dead 2? It's a masterpiece for a reason. Love it. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the review. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it. But for those of you that have seen it, what's your thoughts on Evil Dead 2? Come on, I know you guys got thoughts on Evil Dead 2. It's a fun movie, man. I fucking love this movie. But anyways, guys, if you have any thoughts on Evil Dead 2, definitely let me know in the comments below. How would you rate it? And everything. But yeah, Evil Dead 2 rocks. Great movie. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching my review of Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. I'll see you guys later. Explorer 4 is out. Stay safe out there, guys. Have a good night. Peace.